Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Neha, you are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the day two of this ocean literacy course. That is Ocean Literacy Know Your Planet Beyond Land. Yesterday in my session, we focused on simplifying the vast ocean for our understanding. And today we have with us Dr. Ram Boojh sir, who will take up today's session on the topic Living with the Ocean. So I would like to welcome Ram sir. Thank you, sir, for being on this platform. We also have with us Vinita ma'am. Ma'am, I will request you to kindly say a few words before we begin with the session.
Thank you, Sneha. Thanks for organizing as usual and hosting this session. Yesterday's session was very good, and I think perhaps Dr. Bhuj was not there, but we could send him the gist of the yesterday's session. So, Dr. Ram Bhuj, most welcome for our normal course of ocean through the International Ocean Institute, our partners. And I especially give you thanks for being with us all the time for this mentorship. And I'm really feeling that the students, the participants who are always joining on this for this web course are really lucky to have you as a mentor in these natural things, because many people, as we discussed every time, that many people are really doesn't understand what the ocean means, what are the hidden currents, what is the biodiversity, and why we have to conserve our ocean, because as we say, there is only one earth. So as if we say that there is only one ocean, for to preserve and to conserve all this biodiversity. So I welcome you, Dr. Bhuj, and I'm also eager to listen your thoughts and your knowledge on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinita. Thank you so much. And Sneha, as always, she is spearheading this ocean literacy campaign. I'm really privileged and feel very happy to take part in all these the sessions uh, because ocean is at my core of my heart. Uh, Today, uh, topic is living with the ocean. Vinita, you very rightly said that we always call Earth as we have the only Earth, uh, because there is no other this planet where human habitation or any kind of living uh, things are present. But oceans are always called as one ocean because they are linked with each other. Though we have seven oceans, Sat Samandar, but we are, as we all know, that this earth is two-thirds of the earth is covered by the oceans. So the life started in ocean, and the topic for today's discussion, living with the ocean, uh, I think it's very apt that we start with this topic, how humanity and the whole biosphere is dependent on ocean. So
So
let me
before So before we start with the session, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to all our participants here. We have
okay,
three
no
batch
problem.
this time. So I'll take this privilege to introduce Dr. Ram Boojh to all the audience. He's a professional with a rich and diverse experience of working with the United Nations systems, civil society, the government, and academics in very senior advisory positions and that too for more than 3 decades now. Sir has also served in the UNESCO office in New Delhi for over 11 years, providing intellectual, strategic, and operational leadership to its programs in South Asia. Sir was the secretary of the Intergovernmental South and Central Asia Men and Biosphere Network, and also the focal point for Category 2 centers on biotechnology and the World Natural Heritage. Sir has coordinated the UNESCO Chair on Education for Sustainable Development and the Human Habitat at the Center for Environment Education. He has taken leadership roles in many international bodies, networks, and associations. Currently, Sir is serving as the advisor at the Mobis Foundation, a New Delhi-based environmental sustainability think tank. And he's also advising the UNEP in developing transboundary landscape conservation project. So it is always a pleasure for me and a privilege for me to introduce you and to learn from you every time we interact. With this, I will like you to commence with your sessions. Over to you.
Thank you, Sneha. I think straight away I will share the slides.
So you're permitted to share the slides. You can share
Okay.
it.
Yes. Hmm. So, welcome to these slides on living with oceans. And as I was mentioning that we live on a blue planet, oceans and seas cover more than two-thirds of the Earth's surface, 70% of exactly. Oceans feed us, regulate our climate, and generate most of the oxygen we breathe. They are the foundation for much of the world's economy, from tourism to fisheries to international shipping. Oceans act as a carbon sink and absorb about 31% of CO2 emissions released into the atmosphere, as per the NOAA. NOAA is National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association. Uh, Actually, UNESCO has recently come out of this State of the Ocean report 2024 last year. And this report was compiled by more than 100 authors from 28 countries. They have contributed to the report. This aims to inform policymakers about the state of the ocean and to stimulate research and policy actions toward the ocean we need for the future. We want contributing to the SDG 14, which is on life below water, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Convention on Biodiversity, Sendai Framework for DRR, Disaster Risk Reduction. So these are some of the very important global uh, policy instruments, you can say, like Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 14, which is life below water. So this report talks about it, what is our progress on that. Then Climate Change Convention, COPs, then Biological Diversity Convention, and because oceans, much of the natural disasters are occurring, and there is a Sendai framework, which is again global framework, arrived during 2015 in a place called Sendai in Japan. So this whole report is structured around the 7 UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Actually, UN Decade of Ocean Science, which is 2021 to 2030. And this has been divided into this decade into 7 pillars, and this report has 7 sections, and that provides insight. This you can download from the uh, net because it's easily available. So, ocean related scientific activities and analysis describing current and future state of the ocean, addressing physical, chemical, ecological, socio-economic, and governance aspects. There is another report which was raised last year, Living Planet Report 2024 by WWF. And this report again uh, like talks about the biological diversity which is declining at a very fast rate. 73% decline in wildlife population during the period of 50 years. And highest decline being in freshwater 85%, followed by terrestrial 69% and marine ecosystems 56%. Even this 56% is very significant because this constitute almost more than half of the uh, total biodiversity. So this is the way world consumes. Like US uh, is requires we will require 5.5 Earth, but for India it's zero point 0.8, less than 1. So still Indians are living a sustainable lifestyle. A blue thread across climate and biodiversity conventions. So oceans were discussed in these two very important uh, COPs last year. COP 29 was organized in Baku, Azerbaijan from November 11 to 22, 24. And COP 16 on biodiversity was organized in Cali, Colombia, soon after that, November 28 to December 2022. These are very important happenings last year. And both COPs agreed that ocean based solutions have the potential to advance both Paris Agreement and Global Biodiversity Framework of CBD. And COP 29 was about finance COP. I think you must have followed it through the news items, different newspapers and media, that $300 billion per year was agreed. Of course, there was a demand for 3 trillion US dollars. New collective quantified goal for climate action was established, and carbon markets and new taxes to add. So this 300 billion is not like the earlier it was agreed that those big polluters like China, US, France, those have the historic responsibility. They will contribute to the 300 billion US dollars, but now there is a collective quantified goal, and where this will be generated through carbon markets and new taxes. During the event, some 70 events were hosted in dedicated ocean pavilion. So ocean was everywhere there. Similarly, COP16 was also focused on money, specifically where to find the money required to tackle biodiversity loss and restoration. The Kali Fund was established through though limited in being entirely voluntary, with debated scope, can be a positive step. National biodiversity strategy and action plans, only 44 countries out of 196 had done so by the end of the conference. Actually, it has been agreed under the Biodiversity Convention that every country will produce National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan every 5 years. And last one was submitted in 2022 when this uh, global framework was launched. And till now, only 44 countries had. They were all the countries were supposed to submit during this Cali conference, but no one, other than 44, no one submitted. Even India's action plan is not ready. Sixth, the small island developing states pushed for progress. Maldives announced 14% protection of their coral reefs. Azores announced the largest marine protected area network, protecting 30% of its water. These are small island developing countries who are really at the forefront of climate change and biodiversity loss. Because with the sea level rise, some of these islands might disappear from the planet, from the map of the world. So they are really concerned. So they are taking action on their own. Parties, that means all the countries, approved a new process to identify ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, EBSAs. So this is all that happened during these very important uh, conferences about oceans. But here are on the right hand side, you can say that it's unfortunate that the fossil fuel industry and the petrostates have seized control of the COP process to an unhealthy degree. This was the statement by Al Gore. It's like tobacco lobbyist at a conference on lung cancer. And Azerbaijan has 90% of its exports of fossil fuels. The capital Baku houses the very first industrial oil well and was the first oil town. So these are some of the paradoxes that happened. Living with the ocean, there is another report uh, which is produced annually, and these are some of the uh, Marine Steward Council, Leaders for a Living Ocean. These are some of the titles that are in various reports. Another very important aspect is living with the ocean. Lot of people have been living on the ocean, on the and they have chosen to live by the sea dating back to 170,000 years ago, when early men and women gathered by breaking waves of Pinnacle Point in Africa, in part to take advantage of the seafood. Global warming, sea level rise due to melting ice caps of the magnitude seen in the Hollywood blockbuster Waterworld, we may have to plan to live on the ocean. Designer and architect Buckminster Fuller saw cities at sea contributing to a sustainable future for humanity. Floating cities or sea states may become innovative models of sustainability and peaceful cooperation. This is again uh, an utopian idea, you can say. China's Fuzhou province, where the Tanka people have been settled at sea since 700 AD, pushed into coastal waters in wartime during the Tang dynasty. These boat dwellers were not allowed to set foot on land until the second half of the 20th century. Very strange. Today, some 7,000 Tankas still maintain a sea farming life, possibly a preview to a future to come for many more of us. World Ocean Review 1, Living with the Oceans. This is a report on the state of the world's oceans. We all know about the IPCC report, which 2007, and Stern Review 2006. That prompted the idea of producing a similar type of report for the oceans. Publishing house Marvel Luck in Hamburg, Germany, set up the non-profit company Maribus in partnership with the International Ocean Institute and the non-profit Ocean Science and Research Foundation. both founded by Elizabeth Mann Borges, along with key scientific partners, is the Cluster of Excellence, the Future Ocean, a research group made up of more than 250 scientists investigating climate and ocean change at a number of research institutions in Kiel, drawing on their outstanding expertise and applying an interdisciplinary approach. More than 40 scientists within the cluster authored the first World Ocean Review. This is a very, very interesting development in the oceans. And so far, some 7 reviews have been published. You can just see they deal with the oceans under climate change, marine resources, opportunities and risks, sustainable use of our oceans, making ideas for work, Arctic and Antarctic, extreme climatic, crucial and in crisis, coastal vital habitats. So several titles have so far come out. I think those who are really interested in ocean science, they must go through these reviews. They are published annually. SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, these have become the cornerstone of global sustainability, and 17 goals with 169 targets have been cornerstone of global agenda since they were adopted in 2015 by UN General Assembly. Uh, Goal 14, Life Below Water, is about uh, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. 3 billion people depend on. World population is around 8 billion. So 3 billion, close to half of the world population, depend on marine and coastal biodiversity for their livelihood. And these oceans are endangered. Plastic, overfishing, this acidification, ocean warming, eutrophication. These are some of the dangers to see. And plastic pollution is main. I think we all know about it. Acidification is threatening marine life. And climate change, of course, everything is the warming of the oceans. 90% of the world's fishes are employed in small scale fisheries. Those fishes, their life and livelihood both are endangered, along with the fisheries which are under great threat. This is shows the pictograph shows how the interconnectedness of the marine resources of the ocean, seas, human activities, and society are interacting with each other, and they form this whole circle of sustainability and dependence on each other. So our survival is oceans protection, our survival of oceans life is really guarantee for the human well-being and survival as well. This is a very interesting story. Ducks that travel the world. In 1992, a cargo ship in the North Pacific accidentally tumbled a shipping container on its way from China to the United States, spilling nearly 29,000 rubber ducks and other bath toys into the ocean. It was a blessing in disguise that it helped the man to map the world's ocean. So these are the floating ducks, and this is how these ducks traveled, migration routes and landing events of the friendly floaters. And wherever they landed, and this was like a kind of from 1992 when they started, and how much they traveled. So marine biologists, for them it became a very good example of how these travel, about the water streams, about the seasons, about the how much, what routes they followed. And this also, like the ocean circulation phenomena, was also very much enigma, and these floating ducks help them. This is again migration routes and landing events. You can very well see. So this shows that vessels are a well-connected system, and therefore we must know the intricacies and threats being faced by the oceans due to the anthropogenic activity. That's why I told that oceans, there is only one ocean. Every ocean is interconnected. There are no barriers. And these are some of the threats: buildup of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases from human activities. Oceans are a sink. Of course, they are now almost saturated with carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. And the scientists are fearful that they once they lose their capacity to absorb more GHGs, there will be catastrophes coming in. Average 3 billion tons of carbon, 11 billion tons of CO2 a year in the 60s, and to 9.5 billion tons of carbon, 35 tons of CO2. That means almost 3 times that emissions have been sunk into the oceans in 2010. And was a compilation, the Global Carbon Budget 2021 figures. I think now it must have become almost 10 times more. This causes changes in water temperature, ocean acidification, deoxygenation, leading changes in ocean circulation and chemistry, rising sea levels, extreme weather, and changes in the diversity abundance of marine species. Degradation of coastal marine ecosystem threaten the physical, economic, and food security of local communities, as well resource to global businesses. Climate change weakens the ability of the oceans to provide critical ecosystem services such as food and oxygen, as well as to support nature-based solutions to climate change adaptation. So this is again mainly the greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide buildup, is threatening ocean health. Ocean temperatures hit to record. We all hear about the warming world. Like every year, the recent report says the 2024 was the warmest year ever, and 2025 is going set again warmer than the previous year. Similarly, oceans, they are also warming up because they absorb about 90% of excess heat from greenhouse gas emissions, shielding land surfaces but generating huge, long lasting marine heat waves that are already having devastating effects on underwater life. Study by researchers in China, US, Italy, and New Zealand say that 2022 was the hottest year ever recorded in the world's oceans. I think now it's 2024, the latest figures say. Heat content in the oceans exceeded the previous year's levels by around 10 zetajoules, equivalent to 100 times electricity generation worldwide in 2021, according to the authors. Of course, this oceanic energy, the thermal energy, these all can be used for power generation, but the question is, oceans has a limit, and if they become excessively hot, naturally what will happen to the life in the oceans and its consequences to life on Earth. These are some of the figures: rising sea level, and the data shows that places like Greenland The real problem here is like in the Greenland, most of the glaciers are melting and receding. So here is a beautiful cartoon which says good news. At the current rate of global warming, we should be able to just swim over there and it in under 5 years. Means even these sharks, they say that we will reach the man very easily. Of course, it's not a good taste, but still shows the reality. Our current trajectory of evolution. We started from we evolved from the sea, and we might end into the sea. India, as per the IPCC report, the sea level rise, of course, it's rising around Asia at a faster rate than the average global rate. The report indicates that extreme changes in sea levels previously seen once in 100 years could happen once every 6 to 9 years by 2050. Indian cities that will face the brunt of climate change due to rising sea levels, while these are initial projections, if the trends continue, by the end of the century, these coastal cities will go under as much as 3 feet of water. So these are 12 cities which have been identified as very, very vulnerable. And the figures shows like how much inundated they will become with the sea level rise, but predictions are that they go much deeper underwater if the business as usual continues. Coastal erosion is another area where the loss or displacement of land or the long-term removal of sediment and rocks along the coastline due to the action of waves, current tides, wind-driven water, waterborne ice, or other impacts of storms. So that is also, apart from the sea level rise, this is also very, very uh, dangerous to the coastline and coastal communities. According to the IPCC, sea level rise caused by climate change will increase coastal erosion worldwide, significantly changing coasts and low-lying coastal areas. So these all are interlinked. Coral bleaching, that is another very, very disturbing trend. When corals are stressed by changes in conditions such as temperature, light, or nutrients, they expel the symbiotic algae living in their tissues, causing them to turn completely white. Uh, on the left side, you can just see what are the benefits of corals, what they provide us, and why are they so important. Uh, they produce oxygen. Coral reefs protect coastlines from storms and erosion, provide jobs for local communities, offer opportunities for recreation, source of food and new medicines. Over half a billion people depend on reefs for food, income, and protection. These ecosystems are actually important to indigenous people around the world. 70% of oxygen comes from ocean, though corals cover only 0.0025% of the ocean floor. They are the foundation of ocean health, and without them, marine life would cease to exist. Corals are responsible for producing half of the oxygen present in the Earth's atmosphere. And these are threats. They are last refuge for the world's ailing coral reefs, oceans, could vanish completely if global warming exceeds 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. We have already breached, and we are on the course to breach 2 degrees. So situation is not very favorable. Coral reefs and wildlife that depends on them face a severe threat from marine heat waves, which have become 34% more likely over the past century. Causes of coral bleaching. Increase in ocean temperature caused by climate change is the leading cause of coral bleaching. Storms generated precipitation can rapidly dilute ocean water and runoff can carry pollutants. These can bleach near shore corals, overexposing to sunlight, extreme low tides. Warmer water temperature can result in coral bleaching. Not all bleaching events are due to warm water. In January 2010, cold water temperatures in the Florida Keys caused coral bleaching, event that resulted in some coral death. Water temperature dropped minus 6.7 degrees Celsius, both if there is extreme heat and extreme cold that causes bleaching. How corals become bleached? Healthy corals coated with an algae-like substance known as zooxanthellae. Corals depend on this to survive. Stressed coral, when coral becomes so stressed from changes in its environment, the zooxanthellae can become toxic and leave the coat. And bleached corals, once the zooxanthellae has left, the coral turns white, leaving it vulnerable to starvation, disease, and death. And finally, the dead coral. If the water conditions do not improve, the bleached corals will become black and unable to recover. Beautiful coral world and coral bleaching. Just see these two contrasts. Every year, severity and frequency of tropical storms and flooding increases, and sea level rise is threatening coastal areas. Climate change warms the ocean, causing thermal expansion leading to rise in sea level and change in ocean currents. Melting of ice causes more sea level rise, reducing salinity of the ocean. Greater concentration of carbon dioxide means more of it dissolves in the ocean, leading to acidification. Under the very high emissions, SSP 5 to 8.5 scenario, in which the global average ocean temperature increases by 3.5 degrees by 2100. This is again prediction. It was found that almost 90% of the 25,000 species were at a high or critical climate risk. On average, species were at risk across 85% of their distributional range. Just when I have cleaned up from the earthquake has shaken the coastal habitat, then the oceanic currents are coming up to wipe out whatever left. Another beautiful cartoon. Marine pollution is a combination of chemicals and trash, most of which come from land sources and is washed or blown into the ocean. This pollution results in damage to the environment, to the health of all organisms, and to economic structures worldwide. Every year, roughly 8 million tons of plastic get into oceans, equivalent to one truckload dumped into the sea every minute. This is very, very like land-based pollution. Apart from sewage, industrial waste, most dangerous is the plastic waste. Great Plastic, that's Pacific Garbage Patch. You can call it the Great Pacific Plastic Garbage Patch. Estimated size of the garbage patch is 116 lakh square kilometers. about twice the size of Texas, are 3 times the size of France. And the Gyre is divided into 2 areas: the eastern garbage patch from California to Hawaii, and the western garbage patch extending from Hawaii to Japan. You can just see how dangerous this whole the oceans have become. Like it's 3 times size of France. I think it's if we consider India, it can again be almost double the size. How does plastic reach the oceans? I think we all know how the storm drains. Anytime you throw away something that could be recycled, we are increasing the chances that this will eventually go out at sea. Littering, wind transportation, or overflow, toilet sinks and showers, washing machines. Our clothes shed synthetic microfibers, which get drained along with the water when we do laundry. That is again, I think, the microplastic or microfibers, they are as dangerous as plastics, and rather it's causing a lot of diseases in humans as well as in other biota. A study from 2017 found that just 10 rivers around the world are responsible for carrying 90% of the world's plastic pollution to oceans. Pounds of wet wipes found matted along the coastlines. 14 countries already banned microbeads, as these inevitably wind up as microplastic in the ocean. Why it is important to address ocean plastic pollution? Life of plastic in the ocean is estimated hundreds of years plus. Plastic has been in use for about 100 years. This means the cumulative effect of plastic trash in the ocean is still unknown. When plastic breaks down, it leaches chemicals that have been found to disrupt hormonal system and causes cancer. A researcher in Japan found up to 150 parts per million in samples from the Pacific. Easily ingested microplastics make their way into food chain. As bigger animals eat smaller ones, chemicals accumulate in their tissues and end up in our plates. That is called as bioaccumulation, biomagnification, because it affects the entire food chain and finally it reaches to humans. Microplastic aren't just a problem for meat eaters either. They have been detected in sugar, salt, water, beer, and even the air. Curbing ocean waste at a individual level. These are some of the methods. Recycle and secure lids. Recycle if it is not possible to be completely zero waste. Don't throw trash into overflowing bins, and make sure lids are securely closed. Check your products. Make sure personal care products don't have microbeads. Opt for zero waste natural products. Grow and shop organic. Don't use fertilizers or weed killers on your lawn or garden. Choose organic products as much as possible when you shop. Go as zero waste as possible. Bring your own bag or grocery shopping. I think we all can do these small things at least while going for shopping. Have your own bag, cloth bag. Use your own containers for takeout food and take a reusable water bottle everywhere. Refuse plastic whenever you can. Tackle microfibers. Switch to organic fibers. Wear those that you already have or get them second hand for the smallest impact. Wear less synthetics and wash them by hand or on a gentle cycle. I think this is again like the consumer, because the society is now consumerist, particularly youth. They are going for new and new brands, and means the era of reuse clothes or wearing the same cloth for years has already gone in India as well. But we can like avoid the synthetics, and of course washing by hand is one of the uh, greatest exercise. But if you are using the machine, I think you can put on a gender so that the fibers are not they come out. That reduces life of the fabric, as well as it releases a lot of microfibers. Be vocal. Use your voice to spread the word about this issue and what people can do. Ask companies to eliminate unnecessary packaging and lobby governments to ban single-use plastics and tax polluters. Be a conscious consumers. So basically, these are all about, like we call it, 3R, 4R, 5R: reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose. So there are several slogans going around, but I think once we start applying it in our day-to-day life, then only we can save the environment, save the planet, save the ocean, and save our health as well. Speed bump. Hold on, now I need to part all this plastic. Roses are red, violets are blue. Ocean is filled with plastic. It helps need soon. So everywhere means you can get oceans are the dumping ground. The sustainable management, conservation, restoration of coastal and marine ecosystems are vital to support the provision of ecosystem services on which people depend. This requires a low carbon emission trajectory. We need to be conscious of our actions as individuals and consumers to save oceans and, in turn, uh, ourselves from our self constructed catastrophes. Again, this is again another part of this whole the ocean literacy. This whole course is ocean literacy, and I will be joining French National Sea Center next week because they are organizing a global event on this coastal literacy. And one of the uh, very important saying, a lot of people say that we know much more about the stars, the skies than our oceans. So oceans are very less known. And coastal zone, a transition area between marine and terrestrial zones, includes shore ecosystems, wetland systems, mangrove, mudflat, seagrass, salt marsh, and seaweed ecosystem. The coastal areas is so much diverse and so much ecologically important that they provide solutions for planetary sustainability from all points of views. They are the ecological transition zones, resource enrichment areas, and constitute a concentration area of human marine resource utilization activities. Coastal areas comprise some of the most dynamic natural ecosystems of our planet, where three more main components, the hydrosphere, the lithosphere, and the atmosphere, meet and interact, forming interconnected systems as an interactive zone between ocean and land. The coasts are the most active, sensitive, and resource rich on the Earth's surface. 38% of the world's population lies within 100 kilometers of the coast. These are the coastal zones in India and coastal states. And you can see from 9 states and 4 union territories, they are situated on the shoreline. Total area is 7,516.6 kilometers. And you can see how Gujarat has 1,251, Bengal 157, And I think if you just see, Andaman and Nicobar has the highest 1,962. Gujarat is second, and followed by, of course, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala. So these are some of our coastal states and coastal zones. And Indian Ocean comprises routes for many economic connecting different continents of the world. It is primarily used for trafficking petroleum, minerals, and other goods. Nearly 17 million barrels of oil are transported along the Indian Ocean every day along the Persian Gulf. In fact, improved coastal management is an important element of India's nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement, whereby India has agreed to create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons through additional forest and tree cover, including mangroves by 2030. So I think you might be knowing about NDCs, nationally determined contribution. Every country, as per the Paris Agreement of 2015, has to submit a report, their effort, their strategy, their climate action plan that they will determine. It's not like Paris Agreement is not directing them, but it has asked the countries to determine themselves how much they can contribute in uh, the greenhouse gas reduction. So coastal management is one of the important area for India, this NDCs, and also it's like the eco restoration of the mangroves or the coastal zone regulations. These all are added to India's climate action plan. Importance of coastal protection: it protects coastlines from natural disasters, waves, erosion. Coastal protection structures can also increase land access to the sea, increase this resilience of coastal areas to climate change and sea level rise, improve water quality, provide valuable economic and ecological services, reduce the severity of downstream flooding and erosion, supply large quantities of fish that millions of people earn their living from. Coastal hazards already impact countless communities. The impacts of coastal flooding are predicted to worsen during this century because of population growth and climate change. These are some of the threats. Among the natural threats, action of breaking waves, effects of severe cyclonic storms, rise in sea level, deflation, tidal current, artificial construction of unplanned structures, reduction of sediment supply due to damaging of rivers, removal of sand from beaches, dredging of inlet channels, unplanned reclamation. India has several institutional mechanisms for the coastal conservation, and some of them are this called as coastal regulation zone notifications, which was issued by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The impact assessment division of the ministry regulates development activities in the coastal areas falling within CRZ. Ministry constitutes expert appraisal committees with domain experts for grant of approvals to category A project proposals along the coast. And then National Coastal Zone Management Authority is there, which is the apex agency for coastal regulation. It advises central government on the matters for changes in the classification of coastal zone areas and coastal zone marine protected areas. It also provides guidance and technical assistance to state coastal zone management authorities. So there is the coastal regulatory zone notification. There is National Coastal Zone Management Authority. Then there is State Coastal Zone Management Authority. And this state authorities evaluate the project proposals from their respective states and recommend them to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change or state environment impact assessment agencies. State environment impact assessment authorities are state bodies responsible for granting project clearance to category B projects. Category A clearances are from the state, from the central government. Category B on the basis of recommendations of the state coastal zone management authorities. This authority clears them. The composition of SCIAA is similar to that of Expert Appraisal Committee at the center. DLCs are the district level authorities for monitoring and enforcement of CRZ notification. So these are the institutional mechanisms in place, and then they have considered a society, autonomous body, a registered society called Society for Integrated Coastal Management under the aegis of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It is the designated National Project Management Unit for planning, management, execution, monitoring, and implementation of Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan. And institutional mechanism for implementation of selected targets of SDG 14 Sustainable Development Goals, which is the UN mandated goal 14, lie below water. So Ministry of Earth Sciences, the data source ministry for SDG 14.1, prevention reduction of marine pollution of all kinds, and SDG 14.3, minimization of impacts of ocean acidification, National Center for Coastal Research and attached office of MOES collects all the data pertaining to SDG 14.1 and 14.3 in the country. Then Ministry of Environment Forest at the center is the data source ministry for SDG 14.2, sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems, and 14.5, conservation of at least 10% of coastal and marine areas. Actually, 10% protection was the mandate under the Global Biodiversity Framework, which was to be achieved by 10 years under the biodiversity decade. This was to be completed by 2020. But now target has become 30 into 30. That is 30% of marine areas must be protected by 2030. So this is the new biodiversity framework agreed by the countries, including India. Coastal Regulation Zone was enacted in 90s, a very, very important piece of legislation, and was enacted in 1991 to safeguard coastal environment and ecosystem under Environment Protection Act 1986. CRZ encompasses coastal land up to 500 meters from high tide line and 100 meters along tidal influence creeks, estuaries, etc. Tides and tide lines, spring tides, exceptionally high tides due to sun-moon alignment, highest water line during spring tides, lowest water line during spring tides. These are some of the explanations. And there are several categories under the Act. Till 2013, there were these 4 categories. Category 1 was ecologically sensitive areas with limited permissions, exploration of natural gas, extraction of salt, CR2, developed areas along shorelines, limited construction and reconstruction permissions. And CRZ3, urban and rural areas not under CRZ1 and 2. Specific agricultural activities allowed, repair of existing structures, construction of public facilities, and CRZ4, coastal stretches in certain islands, restrictions on coral and sand use, no dredging or underwater blasting. So these were 4 categories, and in CRZ reforms in 2011, exceptions for new construction and project by Department of Atomic Energy, that was put under CRZ. That means with permission can be given because these are sensitive activities. Then CRZ2, building construction permitted on hazardous line, and defreezing floor space index norms, these were added to CRZ2. And then CRZ reforms, which was recent in 2019, reduction of no development zones, new CRZ categories, CRZ3A, that means no development zone of 50 meters for densely populated rural areas, and CRZ3B is no development zone of 200 meters for densely populated rural areas. Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2018. These are graphics, different zones, A, B, here Z1A and B, eco-sensitive areas, which are no-go zone basically, and intertidal areas. These are very important piece of legislation, and objective is to rejuvenate coastal areas and reduce vulnerability, redevelopment of CRZ areas to meet the emerging needs, densely populated rural areas to be afforded, greater employment opportunities, ecologically sensitive areas accorded special importance. Coastal erosion again, and how this is impacting 33.6% of the mainland of coast of India is experiencing erosion with varying magnitude. These are some of the figures from different states and how this erosions are threatening various coastlines. West Bengal is the most vulnerable, particularly the Sundarbans, and followed by Puducherry and Odisha. And these are the extent of coastal line erosion. So, of almost 1/3 of the coasts India is experiencing erosion with various magnitudes. It's very, very alarming. These are some of the causes: wave action, human activities, sediment transport, hydraulic action, abrasion, impact of corrosion. I think we already discussed some of these. Consequences: loss of land and property, impact on ecosystems and biodiversity. Adaptation mitigation measures for coastal erosion, beach replenishment, nourishment, and sand dune restoration, managed retreat and relocation of communities, regulatory measures to limit coastal development. Already these measures are being taken up on the coastlines of India. Sea level rise. The Ministry of Earth Sciences reports that sea level along the Indian coast has been rising at an average rate of about 1.7 millimeter per year over the last century. Rate of sea level rise has been increasing over time from 1.3 millimeter per year to now 3.7. It's almost more than double. IPCC report project that sea levels around India will rise by 2050. Some critical properties and road networks in Mumbai, Kochi, Mangalore, Chennai, and Visakhapatnam are at risk due to sea level rise. So this figure on the left-hand side, state-wise figures are how these are going to be impacted with the sea level rise. Adaptation measures to stop sea level rise. Efforts are being made by the countries to limit the increase in temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Above pre-industrial levels, some steps that can be taken in this direction are switch to less carbon intensive and further zero carbon fuels like natural and hydrogen. That's already happening. Pushing for early achieving zero carbon neutrality at global level, increasing efforts to reduce deforestation, push for afforestation, especially in urban areas. Extreme weather events is another major. I think we just heard today in the newspaper, in the news report, that Odisha is already facing heat waves and a few deaths. Last day, Odisha's temperature in Cuttack and other areas reached 43 degrees. So this is very alarming. And these are some of the extreme weather events, lightning and thunderstorms. You can see extreme weather events, how they have lightning killed 72 in MP. You can hear the headline. These events are their intensity and frequency both are rising every year. Heavy to very heavy and extremely heavy rainfall, landslides and floods, cold waves, heat waves, cyclones, snowfall, dust and sandstorms, squalls, hailstorms, gales. These are various events which are happening at a more frequent frequency and more intensity every year. This is what the in 2022 figures. India experienced extreme weather events on 314 of 365 days. Recurring event types was heavy rain, floods, landslides reported on 214 days. Other events were lightning and storms 185 days, heat wave 66 days, cold wave 46 days, cloud burst 11 days, snowfall 4 days, cyclones 3 days. These events claimed 3,026 lives and damaged 1.96 million hectares. Climate change increasing the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Some of these events are influenced by climate change, which alters the patterns and intensity of rainfall, temperature, and wind. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Karnataka have a higher projected risk of sequential extremes than other states. This is again 2022 figures. India's disasters, 314 out of 365 days, I already told. And they were spread across 34 states and union territories. These are some of the very extreme events that is happening in every state. and most happened during May to July, early July of the heat one. Then floods happens during the July to November, and similarly other events, cold. So these things are happening all the year around. Strategy for resilience against extreme weather, early warning systems and disaster preparedness, improved infrastructure and building codes, international cooperation for disaster response. So group, these are some of the events management strategy, group level planning, location recovery, location response, location level planning, location preparation. So both on-site and off-site planning is required for dealing with the disasters. Uh, Integrated coastal management actually requires holistic approach, coordinated efforts between governments, communities, and NGOs. This shows how this resources, natural processes, social processes, economic processes, resource problems uses, and that is how integrated coastal zone management could be planned. These are some of the case studies. Odisha, Chilika Lake is one of India's hotspots of biodiversity, including rare Irrawaddy dolphin. That is the only dolphin, brackish water dolphin. And then turtles are at risk from uncontrolled mechanized fishing in prohibited areas, in non-use of turtle excluder devices, and in sensitive tourism. On two stretches of coastline, the project is seeking to plant mangrove, protect sea turtles, and pilot shoreline protection. These are the integrated coastal zone management project on two stretches of coastline, Gopalpur Chilka and Paradeep Dhamra. In these areas, the project is seeking to plant mangroves and other shelter-bed species, protect the olive redley sea turtle and other aquatic life, and pilot shoreline protection in the village of Tentha. So the scheme is still ongoing. Mangrove conservation community engagement under the scheme, community participation, active involvement in the establishment of mangrove nurseries and gene bank, community training and incentives for mangrove protection, turtle conservation community involvement, awareness raising efforts for turtle conservation, training of community members as guides, boatmen, and guards, solid waste management for turtle nesting habitats in Paradeep, livelihood improvement and community-based tourism, and livelihoods of resource-dependent communities, development of small-scale community-based tourism, comprehensive conservation measures, eco-friendly initiatives for conservation, regulation of motor boat traffic around Chilika Lake, conversion of fishing and tourist boats to eco-friendly vessels, real-time monitoring and marine stewardship council certification for fishing, livelihood improvement for coastal communities and eco-friendly boat conversion, successful estuary and crocodile protection program. This is again very, very important. Blue flag certification of beaches in India. Blue flag certification levies awarded to beaches, marine and sustainable boat tourism operators that meet some prescribed requirements. Blue flag certification provides insight into the health of the coastal ecosystem. Blue flag certification is given by international jury consisting of members of the United Nations Environment Program, United Nations World Tourism Organization, Denmark-based NGO Foundation for Environmental Education, and IUCN. So these are some of these beaches which has got blue flag. In fact, I have been organizing an international conference in September every year. So we do organize blue flag workshops through this Center for Foundation for Environmental Education and IUCN within these, on where they promote blue flag certification. And there is another for the hotels, they have come out with the green key certification. So around 8 beaches that you can see. Now the numbers have reached up to 14 currently, as per these FEE figures. They have been certified. So this is all that I wanted to share with you today. Without water, our planet would be one of the billions of lifeless rocks floating endlessly in the vastness of the inky black void. This is saying by Fabian Cousteau, who is the famous oceanographer. So, comments, questions. And, let me stop sharing. So, this
Thank you.
was all I wanted to share with you all. And you are most welcome to interact with me, to ask any questions, any doubts.
Thank you so much, sir, for such informative session. I'll request the participants, if you all have any questions, you all can unmute yourself and go ahead with the question.
I think either they have understood everything or they have not understood anything. So these are the two probabilities. From my point of view, I'm happy that there are no questions, but still,
If anybody would like to share any of their experience or any thoughts, comments.
there, I think in the chat box, there must be some. No, these all are.
Yeah, I'll just check the chat. So we have one question saying that what should be done to protect fish stock?
Oh, there's very long comments. So question is about what should be done to protect the fish stocks. In fact, my talk, I have already mentioned quite a few, but it's overfishing is happening all around, particularly the big trawlers, the corporations, they harvest the fishes uh, at one go, that where not only fishes, turtles, and other, whether these are the young fishes or the old one, the mature one. So that is one how to, like, countries are struggling with that. They are creating fishing zones, specific fishing zones there, but that is not the answer. In certain areas, they have banned these big trawlers, and only those sustainable fisheries are permitted. India's coastal zone regulation also bans big trawlers, the commercial fisheries. The other very important thing is the promoting the culture of fishes, offshore or onshore culture, particularly those shrimp culture or some of the delicious fishes culture, that reduce a lot of pressure from marine the systems. So, I think in one line, the answer is adoption of sustainable fisheries, which communities have been doing all along since ages. I think restocking the already lost fish stock is a global concern and it's being discussed. Particularly big fishes in the deep seas, they have almost gone over 97%. Similarly, other fishes also at the verge of means drastic reduction in their numbers and threatening the livelihood of um, almost a billion those people dependent on them, the coastal zone communities. So, real issue. So that is what I can see. Then I can see another question, which is how does India deal with plastic pollution in its waters? Do you collect and recycle and transform into other products? This is a very important question. Plastic pollution. India hosted World Environment Day 2018. India was the host country. The theme was Beat the Plastic Pollution, where our Prime Minister declared that India will become plastic free in next 5 years. That means by 2023. Plastic, particularly single-use plastic, is banned, but implementation is the real issue. And I think unless people themselves start uh, like denying or refusing plastic, and main issue is, of course, the single-use plastic. So there are several suggestions that government must act on in the plastic industry, but basically, uh, plastic industry is important from many other points of view, like some of the critical equipment manufacturing in both medicines, in defense requirement, in agriculture. Plastics are being used because of their uh, many features that they have. The real question is about the plastic which are creating problem, single use, the microfibers or microplastics. And here there is need for a mass movement. I think Tear Policy Center is already doing something. Many NGOs are doing beach cleanup, plastic cleanup. So I think that is the only answer. Government will do its own job in making policies and legislations, but if we stop using the plastics in our day-to-day life, we can solve the half of the problem. Then there is a comment, I hope India is doing well to protect the ocean, but somewhere we lose the balance in fishing operations, global warming, eutrophication. Sir, in your point of view, where should we concentrate more to meet sustainability? Is doing well to protect the ocean, that's good, but somewhere we lose the balance. And in fishing operations, global warming, eutrophication. I think the question is not to concentrate more on one aspect. It has to be an integrated approach. And integrated coastal zone management is one good example, which is being implemented in certain areas, in certain coastal areas. That is very good. The other viewpoint is like uh, India with other countries has agreed to create marine protected areas, which are very, very important. The marine spatial planning, 30% of the sea need to be protected, at least coastal areas. So if they start working on that, that will be, I think, major contribution. The other thing is land-based pollution, the plastic and others, which are threatening. That's again uh, an issue. I think there is another question, what is that? How does India deal with plastic pollution? This has gone, and I hope India is doing well. This is also done. Then this is pristine nets banned by the Supreme Court of India in 1993 are still being used. Why is the legal system still not taking action against them? When there is lot garbage in the sea, algae larvae are eaten by fish, and more sunlight reaches the seabed, helping the plants at the bottom to grow. I think yes, there are not only these nets banned, uh, but there are other measures which are in place. As I said, there are several regulations, laws, but the major question is its implementation. And the government machineries, somebody might go again to the court to force the court to ask the authorities to implement. In many cases, this has happened. I remember when I was working with the government in Uttar Pradesh, uh, government on a public interest litigation banned the industries around Taj trapezium. They asked industries to operate only after putting the treatment facilities, particularly air control facilities. When nothing happened after a review by NERI, they went to the court. Court again ordered the closure of all those. They were close to, I remember still the numbers, 511 industries. Court straightway that they are not listening, they are not implementing the orders. They pulled up pollution control boards and also asked the board to close all the industries, 511 industries in the Taj trapezium. And similar was the case with Ganga basin where industries were polluting the river. So there close to 1,000 industries were banned, including tanneries, many tanneries in Kanpur. Unless they uh, stop discharging the effluent. So somebody must. But the thing is, how long these courts can force the regulatory authority for implementation? That is another question. Public pressure is one area. I think combined efforts of all these can bring results. Uh, this is the non-implementation of regulations is one area which impacts every sector of our society, including environment and sustainability. So let us keep on hammering the authorities and ensuring that things are done. I
So there is
also remember in cases somewhere in the Western world where public outcry has halted many of the activities without, of course, here courts try to force the authorities to take action. But in the developed world, it is the people's demand. So unless people demand something, governments rarely act everywhere. Yes, Sneha, you are going to say something.
Yes, sir. There was a question before the one which you just took. It says,
Mhm.
given the sea level rise happening, would Indians living on the coastal areas be considered as forced migrants to other inward regions? If there is
Uh,
a potential risk that that region would be affected or destroyed due to the sea level rise, or would it be considered as mere relocation given the size of India? And similarly, there is another one which is, how would human settlements near the coastal areas affect the oceanic life and its sustainability? And what are some of the actions taken? So this is like the vice versa question.
I think the first one, I think let me take first.
Yeah.
On the internal migration is happening all around the world, within the countries, within the regions, and environmental refugees is a word. This is very common. Those displaced by environmental disasters, they become refugees in the other areas. So that is quite likely. United Nations is very much concerned about this issue, which is happening all over the world. People are getting uh, dislocated from their places of living because of environmental conditions, harsh weather, extreme weather events, coastal this erosion or sea level rise. Um, One of the major example is the Maldives. A few years ago, Maldives had its cabinet meeting, undersea cabinet meeting, and they requested some countries, including India, to provide them land in case their country is wiped out of the this world map. And this is they always these small island developing countries, they demand urgent climate action. Number one, number two, right of those communities displaced by environmental extremes to be given equal or dignified space in other areas, but nothing has been done on this aspect. Uh, Countries have their own rules providing refuse or the refugee status. This is happening everywhere. Those displaced from the wars. Similarly, I think those displaced from the climate change and disasters, particularly natural disasters, there must be some ways, and world is thinking about this direction. So I think this is very important. The other question, human settlements near coastal areas affect the oceanic life and sustainability, and what are some actions to be taken? Actually, when I was presenting the coastal regulation zone, uh, there you can just see there are areas like human habitation settlements are not permitted within 5 kilometers from the high tidal zone. Uh, Many of the settlements that are very close to the seas, they are real danger, and naturally, there is always danger of both loss of life and property. So, the more than these human settlements impacting coastal areas will impact human settlements. How strong, however strong you build those settlements, there are ways and means uh, diverting those sea waves to other areas. This has been successfully done in certain countries and certain situations. Impact like in Maldives, they have created their this airport, which is uh, a new island connecting the airport and their town, the Malay town, which was earlier connected through the ferry only. So these are being done in certain parts of the countries, but uh, yes, these are debatable. Human settlements closer to the coast, and particularly high tide line, must be avoided. And oh, somebody has put some Supreme Court of India's judgment, especially petitions, writ petition. Very nice. This is our people are uh, concerned about uh, the state of oceans and particularly its health. But naturally, oceans are less understood and more or less uh, understood in wrong ways as a source of recreation, pollution, dumping everything into the oceans, destroying whatever ocean life is. And in turn, naturally, all the changes that we see in the climate is happening because of the unhealthy oceans.
Any more
I
questions?
think,
Yeah, or we can call it a day.
yeah, we can. We had, I think, enough questions, so we can now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for your informative session and always educating us on the important topics of ocean. And thank you to all the participants for making it possible today and for making this session a bit interactive and coming up with questions. I would love to see such more interactions for the coming days. Tomorrow's topic is strategic importance of ocean, which will be again taken up by Ram sir. The link for tomorrow's session will be messaged to you on the WhatsApp group tomorrow in the morning. And I would love to see all the participants in time so that we can start the session at sharp at 3. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining today. See you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vinita. Thank you, Sneha. Very interesting.
Yes,
I really
thanks.
enjoy.
See you tomorrow.
See you, everyone, tomorrow. Thank you.